First, let me say Wikipedia is complete bullshit.
Sounds like Dee Snider.
Damn, they know a lot of stuff.
The legendary Runaways. The band broke up due to creative differences when Joan Jett wanted to go into more of like a punk rock Ramones style direction, while you and Sandy wanted to play more hard rock tunes, and that led to the breakup.
Well, that's true in a way. They've worded it in their own wording. You know, I don't think Joan Jett plays Ramones style music. It doesn't sound to me like she does anyway. I wouldn't call I Love Rock and Roll Ramones. But it was musical differences. I, on the other hand, did not end up playing with Sandy. She went her path, I went on my path. But it was due to musical differences. And the Runaways had been through hell. I mean, for 4 or 5 years that we were together, it was a journey. And we were teenage girls. We were just growing up. We were still developing our hormones, you know, at that age. So it really led to, we had to find ourselves as human beings. What do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do with your life?
What do you want to do with your life?
Sounds like Dee Snider.
Yeah,
During the mid-1980s, before the premiere of Headbangers Ball, the first MTV program to consist entirely of heavy metal videos was Heavy Metal Mania. First episode aired in June 1985 and was hosted by you.
Hosted and co-created by me and Liz Nealon, a producer from MTV. MTV had announced that they were, not announced, behind the scenes, they were cutting back on metal. I mean, metal built that frickin' network. At a time when they were coming out with videos and they were looking for acts that were now, they needed people that were visually compelling. They were discovering there was a reason why Joe Jackson's shoes were the only thing on the album cover. Get a look at Joe. So metal built that network, and then they decided they were cutting back on it. So I called them, this was 84, 85, around there, and I said, look, you know, metalheads will find their music. Just give us our own show. And they said, well, we have a producer who's interested in doing something. If you'll host it, we'll do it. So Heavy Metal Mania was born, and I did it for 1.5 years. And when I asked to be paid, they told me, Dee, this is such good promotion for you. I said, you gotta be freaking kidding me. I'm the most recognizable heavy metal guy in the 80s. I need money. Yeah, I don't need any promotion. I'm overexposed. They go, well, we don't pay people. So at that point, I left. They changed the name to Headbangers Ball, and Ricky Rackman eventually came in.
you were asked to join Skid Row after you were spotted singing at a rock photographer's wedding at age 18.
Yes.
That's true. So you were a wedding singer for a while, or was it
No, it was Mark Weiss, rock photographer.
Yes.
And I went to his wedding, and me and Zach Wilde took over the wedding band thing.
Really?
And jammed. And Bon Jovi's parents were there and asked me to try out for Skid Row. They summoned me over to their table and said, my son John has a friend, Snake, and they're looking for a singer. We think you'd be really good.
It said that bringing, obviously, legendary guitarist Steve Vai into David Lee Roth's solo band was your idea.
Yes.
It was. That's a hell of an idea.
Well, he was the first guitar player Dave was looking at was Steve Stevens, but Steve wanted to stick with Billy Idol. Yeah. Rightfully so. He was hugely successful. But Steven's also a great guitar player. But I told Dave, I know another Steve. You know, I didn't get him the gig. Steve's talent got him the gig, but I suggested him. And it turned out to be really a perfect choice, in my humble opinion, because Steve, that element of Frank Zappa was the sense of humor. And that was a big part of the band.
Sammy, it said the mechanic who was working on Eddie Van Halen's Ferrari was the one who recommended you as Van Halen's replacement for David Lee Roth.
This is true. Eddie was working on, Eddie had a Lamborghini, and I had a Ferrari at the same shop. And Eddie was looking at my car saying, hey, whose car is this? It's a nice car. And he said, Sammy, you should get him in the band. And I tell you, you should get him into the band, you know. And Eddie says, you got his phone number? And he called me from the office, right there from a mechanic's office. Seriously.
All right, so that's true.
How stupid my life is. Crazy shit happens.
What amazing circumstance that is, right?
It's like, hello?
You formed Cinderella shortly after meeting bassist Eric Brittingham at a bar bathroom on Halloween 1980.
I can't confirm that year, but that is where we met. It was in a club, and I was actually in a band that was looking for a bass player.
Okay.
And it was just like a casual meeting, and he said something about that he was a bass player, and we said, okay, well, you got a gig. Because we were replacing the guy that we were with that night, so, and that's how I met him.
That's good timing for him, I guess.
Yeah.
This was like midstream at the urinal? Something.
No.
All right. That's just a weird place to meet someone at a bar bathroom.
Yeah, it wasn't at the urinal, no. It was probably kind of at the door, kind of thing. That
half in, half out the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
All right.
That's a better visual.
Depends who you ask. The Eat 'em and Smile record. It said the idea to re-record the album in Spanish was your idea because you had read an article which reported that over half the Mexican population was between the ages of 18 and 27, a prime record-buying market.
That's absolutely true.
That's absolutely true.
Everyone else took credit for it, though, but it was my idea.
It was your idea. How did that go? Was that
Well, that was pretty
lucrative?
cool. It was just me and Dave in the studio, and we sang everything. I don't speak Spanish, but Dave can do rudimentary Spanish. He's pretty good at it.
Yeah, he did.
Living in LA, I started to pick it up. And so I just did it phonetically with him. So I remember, tímido, hasta luego. I think it's Shy Boy. I'm not sure exactly what I'm saying. Not everything translated exactly right. And plus, there was a concern that it's a very Catholic country, Mexico.
I think I read that it was changed a little bit.
So they changed some bump and grind into, have a good time or something.
All right.
Let's go a little bit into Twisted Sister here. About Under the Blade, the album had an overall raw metal sound and included Tear It Loose, a very fast speed metal song featuring a guitar solo by Fast Eddie Clarke of Motorhead, and then another single, the future hit We're Not Gonna Take It, was planned for release, but Secret Records went out of business before you were able to complete the lyrics.
The first misstep on Wikipedia, who are doing much better than they used to do.
Finally some fiction.
Yeah. I mean, Under the Blade was our first record. It was very raw. I mean, I've often said, and there's people out there who will scoff, that Twisted Sister invented speed metal. We, as a band locally, I never did drugs, but I am a coffee freak. I am caffeinated out of my mind. I literally was almost fired from Twisted Sister from being too caffeinated. Literally, they told me, dude, you have got to fucking calm down because I'm just so hyped up. So when we played in the bars, we played everything sped up. I didn't realize it was sped up because I was just like, yeah, gritting my teeth, rubbing the coffee beans on my teeth. And in that audience, in that tri-state area, Twisted was a huge influence, and Overkill was born from that audience. Anthrax was born from that audience. Carnivore was born from that audience. And more than one of them have said, we saw Twisted, and Twisted played everything fast, and we went and we played everything fast. The misstep on there was, We're Not Gonna Take It. Yes, one of the funny things about We're Not Gonna Take It is people say, oh, and that's when that's when the band sold out, And I was like, actually, I wrote the chorus to We're Not Gonna Take It in 1980, when at a time where I could not have been hungrier, I could not have been angrier, I could not have been less of a sellout. And I was not able to ever figure out the verse and chorus to the song. So each record went by, I'd keep coming back to this great hook. I just couldn't figure out what to do with it. And in 1983, when I was balls ass broke, this was a dark time, this was before we recorded the You Can't Stop Rock and Roll album. Mm-hmm. So we had lost the Secret record deal. It was winter, I was married, I had a kid, I had no money. Things were really bad, and that's when I wrote the rest of We're Not Gonna Take It.
It said that you and Skid Row parted ways because you booked a show where you guys were gonna open for Kiss in '96. And the other band members took issue believing Skid Row was too big to be an opening act.
That's bullshit.
That's bullshit.
I don't book shows.
Yeah, I figured that was an interesting.
Hey, we're booking a show.
Hey, Gene.
Yeah, I'm the singer in the band. The agent books the shows.
Sure thing.
And Skid Row didn't think they were too big to open for Kiss.
All right, so
it's just.
So it's all just that's complete nonsense. That one.
Because they opened up for Kiss after they kicked me out. Yeah.
They did do that, and it's Kiss. Like,
yeah.
Who's too big to open for Kiss? Sammy, I Can't Drive 55 was inspired by an actual time you were pulled over by a cop in New York.
True. The long story version is I was on a vacation and with my family, and I went to Africa and all over in safaris and all this stuff. But I was gone for 2 months, and I came home and I traveled for 24 hours straight from to get to New York. And then I got to New York, 2 o'clock in the morning. I had a house in Lake Placid, a log cabin. So I was going to take a little break from the travel. So I rented a car, 2 o'clock in the morning, got driving 62 miles an hour down a 4-lane road with not a car anywhere except a cop. And he says, man, I said, man, I was only going 62 miles an hour. He's going, well, we give tickets around here for 62 miles an hour. And I said, wow, I can't drive 55, you know. And I said it to myself, and I kind of, like you said, I had a little tape recorder always, you know, in your little bag there. Just, yeah, and wrote it instantly. It was just, and it sounded like a gimmick song. It's the only thing that drives me nuts about having that as one of your biggest solo hits is that it sounds like it's a gimmick, but it was really a true story. So, I mean, this is true. It was like I was really pissed. While I was gone, they changed the speed limit from 65 to 55, and I didn't know, and I wouldn't care anyway. 55 is just not a very good speed. You know, it takes a long time to get places.
Cinderella was discovered by John Bon Jovi when he saw you guys play in Philadelphia in 1985.
I'm going to set the record straight. Actually, the first interest was shown by Gene Simmons a couple years before which didn't lead to a record deal. But he took an interest in the band, and then John saw us. And, you know, I always get asked about John because that ultimately led to the record deal. So that is true, that his involvement helped. But in recent years, when people talk about discovering, you know, there were others who had taken an interest before that, and Gene being the main one. So, but yeah, it's true that John saw us in a club in Philadelphia. He was in town making his second record, 7,800 degrees Fahrenheit. And he walked into the club and he watched us play, and he came back and introduced himself. And Runaway was a hit at the time, so we knew who he was, and we were like, it's that guy that sings on MTV. You know, we were young, you know. That was kind of cool for us. And eventually, you know, a couple days later, he went back and he told his A&R guy about us. He was already riding the fence on our demo tape. He didn't like the demo tape too much, which it kind of sucked. We weren't real good in the studio, but it came up when John was in his office, and John just said, "Forget the demo tape, you know, and just go see him live." So Derek did, and we eventually got signed to a developmental deal, and then eventually to a record deal. So forever grateful to John for whatever words were uttered in that room. It certainly was the X factor. Who knows where we'd be if those, however many words, 5 words, had not been spoken. Forget the tape. Go see them live. How many words is that?
That's all right. How far before John was Gene in trying to push you guys?
Just a couple years, if I remember. Okay. Yeah, it's a few years before that.
Wow. All right. Well, he must have been happy to see you guys make it. Soon after the Skyscraper record, it said that you left strictly due to musical differences.
Yeah, pretty much. The band, when we first started, we were together in the basement of Dave's house, putting songs together as a band, at a bunch, hanging out, drinking beers, having a great time. Skyscraper was put together in pieces, one guy at a time. You know, drums were done one day, and then a bass part, and it was really, the band really changed. And so it wasn't really my cup of tea, but you know, it was an experiment. I give Dave credit. He really tried to like mix dance and rock. If it would have worked, we would all still be hailing him as the genius of the century. But unfortunately it didn't, because the dance people hate the rock people. And the rock people hate the dance people.
I hate the dance people.
So that was a pretty tough negotiating thing to get those two things together. The wall between them made the Berlin Wall look like a picket fence. So it was, it didn't quite go. But you know, I give him credit for trying. He gave it a shot.
But you really needed that true band environment too.
Yeah, and then therefore, when I started Mr. Big, we went right back to the same methodology we had for Eat 'em and Smile, together in a room, working out parts and playing. For me, that's the best way.
Sammy, it says on Wikipedia that you disagreed with a decision to record 2 Van Halen tracks for the soundtrack to the film Twister, after the band had agreed to take time off following your 1995 world tour.
I didn't disagree with doing 2 tracks for Twister. I disagreed with doing 2 new tracks for Greatest Hits record, because we had never done one at that time, and I didn't think that we should be cashing in yet. I thought we still had another good record in us, and everybody wanted to just do, not everyone, the new manager who came in wanted us to do a Greatest Hits record with both Dave's era and my era, and then 2 new songs for me, and not to my knowledge at the time, and then 2 new songs from Dave, which never happened at the time, so they ended up with just the 2 new songs from me, blah, 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 blah. And we ended up using another one for Twister, and that was the end of the band. It kind of broke the band up. It was because I wanted to do a whole record. I didn't want to do a Greatest Hits record. I didn't think Van Halen was there yet.
Okay, so there was never an aversion to do a movie about a tornado?
That was fine.
Okay, that was all good. Okay.
The song for the movie, that's just fun. I like soundtrack movies.
Okay.
And sometimes soundtracks, people look at them like it's just quick money. Well, you can make really good money if it's successful. Like Footloose, I had a song on Footloose. It was unbelievably successful for the amount of money that I made for that one song, and I did it, in 5 minutes. And so they can be successful like that, but that wasn't the reason. Movies give you kind of like can expand you a little bit. And at that time, MTV was going away. We didn't have MTV for Van Halen. Top 40 radio, we were done with that. They weren't going to play a Van Halen track. And so it was kind of like, hey, let's do a song for a movie. Maybe it's a big movie. We got a song, a little more exposure to a new audience. But that was okay. But the 2 songs were for a Greatest Hits record, which I was against. And it seems like that really broke the band up. I said, well, we're going to do it without you then. I'm going, okay, we're great. No, we were ready to break up. Hey, it was like, it had been a pretty rough year, let me tell you.